Hey, welcome everybody. It's so great that you've joined us. Thank you for watching and tuning in. As a local church, we have been partnering with the city movement called Untold. And if you have never heard about Untold before, it's a movement that champions and is celebrating the unsung heroes of Josie who are doing incredible work in whatever sphere of influence they find themselves. So today we are going to be profiling Joe Niemand. And Joe, it's great to have you with us. Joe is doing some incredible work with his Nkosi Bar. And Joe has an amazing heart for our city, but not only our city, but for the nation. So it's really great to be hearing from you this morning, Joe. So, Joe, we've got the bar here, and I've heard a little bit about your story and your journey. But for those who haven't, can you just give us a quick lowdown? Nkosi Bar, what is it? How did you end up here?
Thanks, Brett. Yes, so a bit of quick background. In 2019, we premiered a musical internationally, and in 2020 we were aiming to produce it in South Africa. And in January last year, we felt prompted to shut it down, which turned out to be a great decision. But with that was a prompting to start preparing for what is coming. And at that stage, we didn't know what that was. But by March 2020,
we all knew.
Things started getting much clearer. So what prompted this was a belief that we are busy going into extraordinary times and where we have a small window of opportunity to prepare and to safeguard the most vulnerable people in our society in a very localized way, but in a way that can have a national impact. So the Nkosi Bar came out of scientists and food technologists who came up with a way of providing something that has very high protein, and we've been developing this since May last year to a place now where we have something that is high in protein, it's very high in vitamins, fiber, omegas, calcium, everything that a young body needs to be able to develop. Because that's probably one of the biggest challenges, is being able to provide cost-effective food that actually gives a young body what it needs. There are children that even in last year passed away in South Africa because they're getting empty calories and they can't survive on it. And not only that, once malnutrition kicks in, they become vulnerable to any type of sickness. So the Nkosi Bar is a malnutrition intervention designed to be able to fit into any feeding program without disrupting it and supplementing it. And it's something that tastes fantastic because, it could be the best thing in the world. If kids don't finish it, it's useless. So that's the Nkosi Bar in short.
Okay, brilliant. And that's awesome. That sounds amazing. I think for a lot of us, we almost live in these bubbles of when you talk about malnutrition. It's hard to actually understand the realities of that in a South African context. Can you just bring some light on the realities of malnutrition in our country?
Sure. I think one of the most disturbing things for me working on this was realizing that there's been a silent crisis that's been coming for a couple of years, not just COVID-induced. COVID has increased it exponentially. But to give you an idea, when a child is a victim of malnutrition, if they go through that for long enough, eventually they go into something called stunting. Stunting means basically that their brain cannot fully develop and their bodies cannot fully develop. So to put that into context from where we've come from, in 2016, there was a study done in Gauteng, which is the richest province. The percentage of children, I'm not talking about malnourished children, I'm talking about children that already had stunting, permanent loss of their full potential, was 34.2%. Now, government was estimating that last year, when COVID began, we were at 11 million food insecure people. By August, September, October, they were projecting that to be 30 million. That's half the population.
That's ridiculous.
Now, if you take that into account and you go back to the 34.2%, we are definitely going into a time where children are going to be losing their lives. And if you speak to government dietitians, they speak about that openly. Now, we don't have organizations that are screaming that from the top of the mountains as it should be. There's no way that a country can be in a better state than its children. I mean, that should be the baseline for us. So we're really talking about future-proofing the next generation. The next generation are going to be our leaders. They're going to be our doctors. They're going to be our scientists. They're going to be coming up with the ingenious things that will make our country a better place and will build it. We have to fight for them now, and we need to get organized in doing that. Now, why are we focusing on the ages between 1 and 6? Because between 1 and 6, they don't form part of the national school feeding program.
Yeah.
So there's this gap where if we drop the ball in that age group, the development that does not happen there, if they pick up stunting in that place, there's no intervention after that age that will recapture their potential. No amount of development, no amount of higher education, even nutrition after that. Even though it's important, they will not regain the God-given potential they were given. So it is a critical thing now. And yes, we don't see it in the news all the time.
Yeah.
You get mentions of it, and people are in such a survival mode for their own families that they can't take that on board. But it is critical that if we say we are proud South Africans, if we say that we are nation builders, if we say that we believe in the future of this country, that we have to get organized and for everybody to see this as their responsibility, not somebody else.
Yeah. And it's hectic. All those stats that you've just said, and like you said, it's a silent crisis. I mean, I think the scary thing for me is that you mentioned this was pre-COVID. I mean, the realities post-COVID must be terrifying.
And our focus should be on the most vulnerable.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, up to 6 years old, there might be millions of children. We won't see the effect of it in another 20 years. But they don't have a voice.
Yeah.
They don't have a voice. They can't threaten violence. They can't get together in groups. And children experience hunger as trauma. So not just the physical impact on children not being able to reach their full potential, we are raising a generation of traumatized people.
Yeah, sure. It's crazy. And I mean, I think you mentioned it in your previous answer about so often we can put reliance on someone else, and it's someone else's issue, or it's government's issue, or it's someone else's issue. But I've heard you mention before that this is actually an incredible opportunity for the church. This space that we find ourselves in. I mean, can you tell us a bit more about what do you mean by that?
On a very basic level, the mandate to look after the vulnerable was not given to government. Yes, people do that. But essentially, Christ defined his followers as people that look after the vulnerable. In Matthew 25, he says that if you gave a cool cup of water to the least of these, you've given that unto me.
Yeah.
That is an incredible opportunity. If you want to do something for Jesus, do something for a vulnerable child.
Brilliant.
There's nothing you can do for a vulnerable child that will go unnoticed. And in fact, if you don't do it, it will also not go unnoticed. I think the opportunity that lies in it for us, that we have through time and through the way that our society is kind of chopped into pieces, we've lost sight of the most basic mandate God has given us. You can't preach the gospel to somebody that's hungry. You can't say, oh, okay, I see you starving, but I'm going to pray for you and hopefully somebody will do something. If we are the hand and the feet, the great opportunity that lies in this is that the church wakes up. And I think through COVID, that's starting to happen, where people are kind of reevaluating, going, but if all our programs and our buildings and all the things that we've amassed, if that's suddenly taken out of the picture because we can't even meet, what are we about?
Yeah. Sure.
And how will we be judged with what it is we have available to us and what it is that we handing out? God can't put anything in an empty hand, and the Dead Sea is not dead because nothing flows into it. It's dead because nothing flows out of it. Yeah. So the word also says that the children of the righteous don't go hungry. Now, if you think about that, we have an opportunity not just to save the lives of children, which should be our first priority, no matter who they are. With that is an opportunity to really make an impact for the kingdom and spread the good news, spread the gospel, and I mean it's everything that we should be busy with. And I fear that we've lost focus. We've lost focus, and this is an opportunity to course correct and to really say, what are we about? What are we going to do about it? And if we have a window of opportunity to prepare for this, what do we put in place? We've got to be very practical. And one of the things that makes this difficult is people. There are a couple of tripwires that get tripped. The one is people are in survival mode and they hear about the scale of the problem and immediately they go, well, I can't take that on board.
Yeah.
You know, I've got my own problems. I've got to take care of my people, and that's right. But people hear hungry children and they switch off because they can't take it on board because they're being pounded with bad news about a bunch of things that aren't about children.
Yeah.
Okay. The second is getting overwhelmed and going, well, if it's that big, what difference can I make?
Yeah.
And for me, the picture that I work with, because it can be very emotionally draining, it can be debilitating. The picture that I keep in front of my mind is it's Sunday lunch at my house. My whole family's around the table. We're dishing up, and there's a 4-year-old that hasn't eaten properly in 3 days. Now you show me one person that will tell me it won't make a difference to dish them a plate of food. Nobody would say that. Nobody, no matter who they are, nobody would say that. So every meal makes a difference. And if we focus on that, and we focus on a child and the basic need of having an empty stomach and they can't make a plan for themselves, let's step into that gap and let's be the solution.
Sure.
Because it's not just the right thing to do, it's the place we've been called to.
Sure. So it's amazing. I think there's it really is a wake-up call for the church. I think I've heard so many times before, there's a lot of people that talk about, care for the vulnerable, care for the poor is a secondary issue to the gospel. It's not the primary. Someone's spiritual well-being is the primary responsibility of the church. And I think you have touched on it so well there in terms of the realities of what Jesus says to the church about actually caring for the poor and vulnerable. I mean, is there are many leaders and people in influential positions who are watching this? Is there what would you say to them in terms of trying to, if they've suddenly gone, whoa, I'm awakened to the reality of this, how do they make that shift, that change?
There's a story about a guy that meets an evangelist, and he says to him, listen, I live in Joburg. If you're ever in Joburg, if you need food, need a place to stay, need a vehicle, whatever it is you need, call me. I'll pray for you.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, that's the type of mindset that
Sure.
says spiritual well-being is primary.
Brilliant. Sure.
If you have a starving person, spiritual well-being becomes primary when the other stuff are sorted.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow.
Don't tell me that you're gonna minister to a hungry child with no food.
Yeah.
Don't tell me that.
Yeah.
And I think that mindset, and maybe I'm misinterpreting it, so I don't want to make a blanket statement
Yeah,
about
for
it.
sure.
But that sounds to me like people that are so out of touch with
the
what a hungry
realities
child
of-
looks like
Yeah.
that they're able to make statements like that.
Yeah. Sure.
If you look at the words of Christ, it wasn't secondary, it wasn't hidden in the back.
Yeah.
He defined it as what a follower of his looks like,
Yeah.
which if you think about it, then means if you're not doing that somehow in the sphere where you can, then he doesn't consider you to be a follower of him.
Yeah, and it's not even just the words of Christ. It's through the whole Scripture, Old Testament into New Testament. But yeah, you're so right. I mean, Jesus he's incredibly clear around what that looks like. I mean, I would love to get into the actual bar and kind of how practically are you out working this in terms of looking after the vulnerable and how do people get involved in what you guys are doing?
So we've got established distribution partners that have been doing this for decades, and that's been a key thing for us. You know, if you're going to go into some place you think there's a need and just hand out food, it's going to be a mess. You know, you have to respect the communities. You have to respect the way they operate. And there are a lot of social dynamics that need to be taken into account. So it's like Jesus said, we're fishers of men. And I've never met a fisherman that doesn't love fish. You know, so you've got to know what works and when it works and how to do it. So that's been a very big a breakthrough for us to be able to. We've done pilot programs with in areas where the response has been so overwhelmingly good that people have opened up their national networks to say,
amazing,
we will distribute and monitor for you. So what we need to do is we don't ask for donations. We ask people to adopt an ECD center. Now, ECD stands for Early Childhood Development. It's basically what we used to call a creche. So you can adopt a creche for a year, and we provide the food. It's delivered and it's monitored, because if you don't have monitoring, you know, you don't know what happens with it. So we've got a national network, and we're busy. We've already got more than 2,000 ECD centers that can be identified in a specific area. So when we work with big corporates, most people now want to make an impact in the communities in which they are operating.
Yeah.
So that's how we do it. People give us the areas they want to make an impact in. We identify the ECDs we can make available to them. They sponsor them, and it's for a year in advance. Yeah. So we don't have to run around, you know, collecting money, trying to keep it going. It has to be sustainable. Yeah. And then smaller than that, you know, there's some individuals that can sponsor an ECD center for a year. And then if you sponsor a box, 750 Rand for a box, that allows us to provide a school day meal for a child for 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, I think, sorry to interrupt you, Joe, we do have a slide that should be coming up. And maybe you can, like you've been talking into the practicalities of, so 750 Rand can provide bars and a meal for a kid for 6 months.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and if you, the base model is that we provide 3 fortified meals a week. So Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and then Tuesdays and Thursdays the bar's breakfast. Yeah. And we've been working with dietitians and people in the medical field, and they consider 3 bars a week to be a very strong bulwark against malnutrition. And that's what we're trying to do. This is not something that replaces any type of food program. It's something that supplements it. So according to what the condition on the ground is, according to what the needs of the children are, some of them might be fine with 1 bar a week. You know, we don't at this stage suggest more than 3, because it's not a hunger product; it's a malintervention product. So the idea is something that doesn't need preparation, something where the vitamins and the micronutrients aren't vulnerable to overcooking, and so the logistics are very easy. And we're looking to draw a direct line between the person giving it and the people receiving it. So it's not going to some national fund where, you know, it goes. There are a lot of numbers. You don't know what comes out the other side. Yeah. You sponsor a specific school, and they get provided to for a year.
Sure. And for obviously that's for an individual. For businesses wanting to get involved, what are the costs around that?
So on the base model, and that's something we work with. We build on average, you get between 50 and 60 kids in an ECD center. For 50 kids, it'll cost 32,500 Rand to provide a school day meal for a year. Sure. So that's delivered and monitored. And that's in the network that we've already got. If people want to provide something for ECD centers that they know outside of that network, we'll provide them the food, but counterintuitively, it actually works out more expensive. So, it's all about creating an on-ramp for people that is easy. And unfortunately, it's true for most companies that that their corporate social responsibility funding comes out of their marketing budget.
Yeah.
You know, so we have to change the way we think about making an impact.
Yeah.
It used to be going in with a big splash, you know, with branding, taking a picture, and the next week it's tumbleweed.
Yeah.
We have an opportunity to make a lasting impact and create nutritional safety nets that can change the lives of children and save the lives of others.
Yeah, I love that. Nutritional safety nets is amazing. So obviously the nutritional value of these bars is incredibly important. And we've actually got a video that we wanted to show you from a dietitian speaking about Nkosi Bar and the nutritional value of it. So here we go.
When I was approached to look at the Nkosi Bar as a clinical dietitian, I initially looked at it from a work perspective and really just assessed on a theoretical side the composition of the bar. And I was very impressed by the complex carbs that it contained and the amount of fiber, the proteins that was a good quality protein, which is usually a very expensive source of macronutrient, and a lot of people can't necessarily always buy the correct amount of proteins. What also impressed me about the Nkosi Bar was the fat composition, and especially the omega-3s in the Nkosi Bar, which is extremely important for brain development and concentration and memory. But it's also given me as a mom an easy way of providing the necessary nutrients and macronutrients. As a dietitian, we obviously want kids to eat the broccolis and the cabbages, but realistically, quite often parents will say to me, I can't get my child to eat certain foods. And the benefit with the Nkosi Bar is that the kids love it and they get the necessary vitamins and minerals. In conclusion, not only is the nutritional value of the Nkosi Bar excellent, but it is a convenient, affordable way of making sure your children get the needed nutrition.
Can you tell us, I mean, some of the projects that you have been involved in before? I know you've mentioned Mamelodi to me before and the work that you guys have done there. Just to give people a bit of background in terms of, you spoke about monitoring and that kind of...
So we've started on M&E now in a couple of centers, starting now when the schools open. But anecdotally, the feedbacks, we get a report of every time food is distributed. The impact on the children was marked. Children were less sleepy. They were more active. Some of the non-bacterial chronic skin issues cleared up, and that was after 2 months with only 2 bars a week. We didn't expect to see results like that until after maybe 3 or 6 months. So yeah, children were drinking more water. They were coming to school more often. So we really know that we've got something that can make a real and tangible difference.
Yeah.
And even for other people, it's not just for I mean, we're focusing on the most vulnerable people, but there are people that have a heart for other people and other age groups. And even with the elderly, we've had amazing results with elderly. With the elderly, we've people that lose their appetite but have a real need for real nutrition. We've had some spectacular results with cancer patients that have really responded well to it. So there's a number of ways people can use it.
Sure, amazing. And in terms of just practically looking at the bar, let's say someone is just even interested for their own family, in terms of where can they get this bar? How can they get in touch with you guys?
So the website is savealife.africa.
Okay.
Savealife.africa. You can sponsor a child there. You can contact us if you want to look at identifying schools for you to get involved with, and you can buy it for yourself. A lot of people actually keep bars in the car and hand it out. You know, if you know you've got somebody that's in need of food, to give them something that you know is a fully balanced meal. A lot of people get a lot of joy from that, and I think it's a good thing.
Sure. And I know right here at Echo, you can actually pick up your bar if you go and order it online, hey?
Yes, so we've got pickup points across Gauteng at this stage. So the shipping is really cheap. I think it's about 80 Rand for the delivery of a 6-7 kilogram box.
Yeah.
And that's nationally within 3 days. Otherwise, if you're close to one of our pickup points, which you'll see on the website, you can just pay on the website and pick it up there.
Okay, brilliant. Well, Joe, we just want to say thanks for joining us this morning. It's great to hear what you guys are doing. I think I think for everyone watching, we really trust that you'll be activated and stirred in your heart to be aware of the extreme crisis, as Joe said, the silent crisis that our nation is facing, and to in whatever way you can, if it's supporting Joe and getting involved in Nkosi Bar, or if it's whatever you're involved in your sphere of influence, to bring that sense of urgency into your conversations, into what you're doing, that actually this is an opportunity for us as the church to make provisions for the future. I think it's so vital that it's almost like a Joseph moment for us, that we have this moment in time to prepare our nation for what is to come post-COVID. So Joe, we want to thank you so much. We celebrate what you guys are doing, and well done. And yeah, again, if anyone wants to find out some more information around what Joe's doing, savealife.africa. You can also come pull in here to Echo, and you can find a bar here. Joe, any other last words you want to just share with everyone? Or
I just want to say that for us to take responsibility for the children in our own area is the key to really making them safe, and that if we all do what we can in our area, we're going to change the next generation.
Brilliant. Thank you. Well, thanks, Joe. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching, and we trust that you have a great rest of your day.